Damn it, scroll. Okay, I'm picking up from where I think I left off, which was after 256. Okay, 257. Hey, anybody else believe Papadopoulos can't read his own handwriting or interpret his own ideas? Neither do I. So the notes I just put in this thread, tweet 256 must be important. Papadopoulos declined to assist in deciphering his notes, telling investigators that he could not read his own handwriting in the journal. Papadopoulos 9/19/17/302 at 21. Notes, however, appear to read as listed in the column to the left of the image above. Mueller fails to note that Papadopoulos got explicit permission to give Interfax Russian media interview in September 2016 and sent a copy of the interview to foreign contacts before getting canned by the very campaign that approved the interview. That's key evidence. 259. Why did Trump's top aides tell Papadopoulos to give an interview to Interfax, during which interview Papadopoulos played up Trump-Russia friendliness at a time when Trump still wanted Clinton's emails, and then fired Papadopoulos for giving the interview they approved? 260. Ah, yes, good old George. Mueller says he told both the Australians and Greek governments about the Kremlin having Clinton emails, but not the Trump campaign. And yet, what's this? He vaguely recalls maybe telling Clovis, and Mashburn says he told him. Jesus, Mueller. This is why I emphasized how early in the report Mueller said, in effect, here are the obstacles I faced in collecting evidence. One of them was Trump's people lying. There's every indication Clovis and others, but Trump successfully lied many times to Mueller. You have a whole campaign that acted like it had just been told the Kremlin had some emails, that whole campaign that knew they couldn't get in trouble for acting on that knowledge of the bribery, aiding, abetting, or illegal solicitation, where if they just lied about it. Did I mention Papadopoulos was a liar and that Sergei Milian refused to come to the United States or talk to the special counsel's office? And again, remember what Mueller said. He did the best he could, but he was stymied by people making themselves unavailable and lying. On August 23rd, 2016, Milan sent a Facebook message to Papadopoulos promising that he would share with you a disruptive technology that might be instrumental in your political work for the campaign. Papadopoulos claimed to have no recollection of this matter. This report is so damning. Just a reminder, please retweet my pinned tweet, the first tweet in this thread. If you want people to follow along with this thread, which I admit could end up being historic in length by the time we're done. So why not participate in a little social media history here? I want to caution us all again about the scope. For instance, in speaking of around page 100, Mueller says he couldn't establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Page coordinated with Russian election interference. A very high bar. There's a lot of criminality beneath it. 267, Page was never in a position to coordinate with Russian hacking or propaganda, which is why no one, even Steele, ever accused him of it. The question with Page was whether he ferried information between Team Trump and Russia and as part of a criminal scheme and lied about it. I mean, Page actually told this SEO he was working on America's behalf and passing private information on the U.S. Energy sector to Russian spies. That's how crazy it is when you add that in line about meeting Kremlin officials in July 2016 to see his actions as benign. Page showed up at the campaign and said, I want to help you improve relations with Moscow and help Trump meet Putin. And though he was an actual obvious crazy person with a possible Russian spy past, he was brought aboard. That is not okay and not normal for a campaign. So if the question is, did the Trump campaign use Page as a courier in secret discussions with the Kremlin as part of a larger criminal scheme, likely bribery, aiding and abetting illegal solicitation of foreign campaign donations? All the public evidence says it did. But Mueller simply saying that he couldn't establish beyond a reasonable doubt that Page coordinated with Russian election interference, a completely different allegation that no one made against Page and that none of the evidence supports. You see the problem there? People misunderstood the Democratic strategy in responding to the report. As heard in Hoyer's words, there are 20 pending federal/state probes of Trump and his crew. The Democrats were never going to make a final call on impeachment until all the evidence is in. While some Democrats may inartfully answer questions about impeachment today, and any media saying it's off the table permanently, is quite simply misreporting the Democratic position in order to generate a headline that's easy for casual news watchers to follow and understand. Mueller reports that in January 2016, Page told top Trump officials A, he had high-level Russian contacts, B, he wanted to help Trump communicate with those people, C, the topic he was interested in, presumably they were sanctions. What did Trump do? Hire him. 275, okay, wow, Page helped edit the Mayflower speech. That's stunning. Is the speech during which Trump formally established his foreign policy towards Russia, and we know it was partially written and edited by criminal agents, but we didn't know about Page. Mueller confirms Page was invited to Moscow as a result of his role in the Trump campaign, so calling it a personal trip when he got campaign approval and gave the campaign a readout too is insane. That Kennard Silver done with it was a campaign-related trip, period. When someone is your Russian actor and an announced member of your NetSec team, and they are invited to Russia by criminal agents, you can't, Corey Lewandowski, just send an email saying that it's outside the person's campaign role, and I would have that be so. It doesn't work that way. News of Page's visit went all the way up to Putin's office, as Lewandowski knew it would. That's why he didn't do what anyone else would, say to Page, if you're on our campaign, you can't go on this trip. Lewandowski wasn't allowed to send that sort of message to Moscow. Page attended a speech in Moscow in which a Kremlin official railed against U.S. sanctions, then shook Page's hand and said the Kremlin looked forward to working with Trump. The message was clear both by the campaign letting Page go to Moscow and the Kremlin speaking to him. Holy cow, how good was Chris Steele's intel? Read the first two sentences and the last sentence in the image and tell me how Steele had access to a private conversation between a top Rosneft executive and Page. Steele was MI6 and his work was freaking amazing. This proves it. Ink and Baranov talked about material non-public information. Page believed he and Baranov discussed Rosneft president Igor Sechin, and he thought Baranov might have mentioned 7516 email Klimatov to Kazarova, translated 554 DM Klimatov 11/27/18 at Y2 5657616 email Peskov to A. Klimatov, translated 566 Page 310/17/302 at 3 507 C. Carter Page, the lecturer of Trump's advisor Carter Page in Moscow. YouTube channel Kuchon Think Tank posted July 7, 2016, available at https //www.youtube.com/watch?time_continue =2 8 ampersand VM 1 capital C capital Y capital F 29. Is that a? I don't know what symbol that is. Looks Russian. Capital A 9 lowercase W. Page also provided the FBI with a copy of his speech and slides from the speech. See Carter Page, The Evolution of the World Economy, Trends and Potential Speech and Natural Economy Speech, July 7, 2016. And then 558, page 310/17/302 at 3. 559, page 316/17/302 at 3. 570, S. Weber 728/17/302 at 4. 371, grand jury, blacked out or redacted. 572, page 310/17/302 at 3, page 330/17/302 at 1, page 331/17/102 at 2, 373, page 330/17/303 at 3. All this is page 100 of them. I'll try and look up that link later. YouTube, but I can't do it right now. I'll give it a try, but I don't know. Oh. Oh, I found it. Oh my god. Oh my god. How many views? 28,343 views. Kate Hahn Think Tank. I'm gonna save this for later. 53 like it, 32 don't. I don't know why. Well, Carter Page is one of the youngest advisors of Donald Trump. He's an energy and economic development expert, particularly regarding the countries of the former Soviet Union and the Socialist bloc in Eastern Europe. He collaborated with the Council on Foreign Relations, where he led a research group on the Caspian Sea region. Page lived in Moscow for 3 years. He was advising Gazprom after the unification of Crimea of Russia and the beginning of Operation Ukraine. He was one of the few American experts who called for understanding the actions of Russia. Page came out openly against the interventionist policy of NATO, which in his opinion provoked Russia with its expansion. Oh God! Well, somebody hasn't commented this on two. Well, somebody commented on this 2 years ago. Traitor. Somebody else commented on this. Yeah, somebody didn't go by nameless. Simply said traitor with an exclamation point. And then somebody else 2 years ago, Raven354. Raven354. That's RAIVAN says when Trump says he will bring back torture, I hope he doesn't mean something as cruel as forcing someone to listen to this buffoon's excruciating lecture. Oh God. Okay. Okay. That's fine. Oh shit. I'm sorry. Shit. Oh damn. Oh, well, you know what? Okay. I'm gonna. Okay. Let's. U.S. Department of Justice, training work product, make it a material protected under Fed crime or crime P6E. Possibility of sale was taken Rosneft in passing 574 page recall mentioning his 281. One of the many things his feed did beginning in January 2017 was presume Steele was correct in saying that his raw intel was likely between 70% and 90% correct. And now here we are reading a report that underscores that Steele is just as good at intel as MI6 always thought. 282. Mueller writes Page's activities in Russia were not fully explained. One problem he had, he relied on Clovis, a man at the center of most sleazy Russia-related events, but then hired a guy who later became Trump's lawyer to tell Mueller he knew nothing about anything. 283. Imagine it. The Trump campaign was so terrified at the blowback from the September 23, 2016 report that said Page illegally negotiated sanctions with the Russians in summer 2016 that it fired him and had Flynn carry on the very same negotiations. My God, these people. 284. One of Hope Hicks's countless white lies that weren't really so small at all for Trump. 589. Michael Isikoff, U.S. intel official, probe ties between Trump advisor and Kremlin. Yahoo News, September 23, 2016. See also 9/25/16 email Hicks to Conway and Bannon, instructing that inquiries about Page should be answered with, quote, he was announced as an informal advisor in March. Since then, he has had no role or official contact with the campaign. We have no knowledge of activities past or present, and he now officially has been removed from all lists, etc. Quotation marks. 285. So, 1. Hicks learns there's a law enforcement investigation into Page in Russia. 2. The campaign knew Page had contacts with Russia. 3. Hicks told staff to tell everyone, that's including law enforcement, the campaign knew nothing of Page's contacts. Still no crime, right? 286, the section on Simmons, CNI chief and a Putin friend, is very problematic too. Mueller says he did not identify evidence that Kushner or Sessions with contacts with Simmons passed info to the Kremlin, but they discussed Russia, and Simmons is Putin's friend. See the problem? 287. So when does chatting repeatedly with Putin's friend about Russian policy, when that friend is irrelevant to the campaign, becomes getting a message to Putin? Must Kushner confess? I told him to pass it on, or with hundreds of pages of other evidence, can one to do with intent? In other words, Kushner and Simmons discussed the National Security Advisory Committee that Jared's father-in-law was convening that day. This paragraph makes no sense. If Simmons was discussing the committee on the day it was meeting, and Kushner didn't inform him of that. Notice on 606 of March 31, 2016, Simmons and Kushner had an in-person one-on-one meeting in Kushner's New York office. During that meeting, Simmons told Kushner that the best way to handle foreign policy issues for the Trump campaign would be to organize an advisory group of experts to meet with candidate Trump and develop foreign policy approach that was consistent with Trump's voice. Simmons believed that Kushner was receptive to that suggestion. 289. Regarding if Simmons helped write Trump's foreign policy, yes, the Putin friend helped write Trump's Russia policy. That's a known fact. But we didn't know until now how closely tied he was to the National Security Advisory Committee from which all the Russian contacts came. 290. So it was Kushner who read the National Press Club speech moved to the Mayflower line about why. They said security, capacity, both untrue, so he could have a VIP hour that would include a man, Kislyak, that Reuters said he contacted pre-speech, or Jared. Oh, Jared, what did you know? 291, Congress must find out what Kushner said in his April 2016 call for Kislyak before the Mayflower speech. Simmons invited him to it on April 20, 2016, apparently the day Kushner and Manafort announced it, so it's clear the Trump campaign was reaching out to Russia directly. 292, Mueller reveals there was a post-Mayflower speech luncheon. We never knew that, and it matters because it again explains why Kushner may have wanted the Mayflower to be the venue, not the NPC. I don't care about Kislyak not being there. Who spoke to his friend, Simmons or Symes? It sometimes seems like this report was created piecemeal by people who weren't talking to one another about the research. It's blindly obvious that Simmons was helping run Trump's Russia policy and trying to put Sessions and Kushner with the Russians whenever possible. I don't find anything Simmons says credible, none of it. I can't imagine that Mueller did. This guy put himself at the center of Trump's Russia policy and described as a friend of Putin. Then he tells Mueller he warned the campaign against secret back channels. What? Jesus, I wrote tweet number 294 before reading of Simmons' meeting with Kushner to discuss Russian policy. On the day Trump and Flynn were briefed about Russian attacks on America and attempts to infiltrate the Trump campaign, the exact same day, Simmons, Putin's friend. And Mueller wants to know why Kushner told Dearborn to turn down most offers to set up Trump in a meeting with Putin. Jesus, Bob, couldn't it be because you just discovered that Kushner was speaking regularly himself with Putin's friend Simmons? This is also obvious. I'm very comfortable thinking of Simmons as a Kremlin agent, and for every contact Kushner has had with him as being in contact with a Kremlin agent, and every piece of time aid he received from Simmons being aid received from the Kremlin. Look up Simmons and you'll feel the same way. Simmons will end up before Congress, mark my word. He's emerged as one of the stars of the Mueller report. So far, I've identified Mueller's gravest error. He didn't realize Simmons was a Kremlin agent. Read the Simmons pages 100, 110 with that in mind, and your head will pop off. And feel free to check me on Simmons' background. You'll find exactly what my many hours of research found. 300, Trump's lawyer, Cohen, apparently told Mueller he thought Trump's son, Don, told Trump of the June 2016 meeting in advance. But given that Trump said, I can't recall, and Don Jr. repeatedly lied in every statement he gave to law enforcement of Congress, what are you going to do? 3-1, so it's confirmed Don Jr. did tell a Kremlin agent in Trump Tower on the midst of the campaign that if Trump was elected, he'd revisit the question of sanctions, i.e. take another look at Obama's policy. So the Kremlin got what it wanted, a promise to revisit sanctions. 302, and SDNY says the woman Don Jr. made that promise to was not only a Kremlin agent, but a criminal. 676, in December 2018, the grand jury in the Southern District of New York returned an indictment charging Vessel and Sky for obstructing the Prevezon litigation discussed in the text above. The indictment of the United States versus Natalie Vladimirovna Veselnitsky, number 18 CR 904 SDNY. The indictment alleges, among other things, that Veselnitsky lied to the district court about her relationship to the Russian prosecutor general's office and her involvement in responding to the U.S. document request sent to the Russian government. 303, holy cow. Veselnitsky also tried to get to Eric Prince's friends in the Rohrabacher delegation that went to Moscow in 2016. This suggests the beginning of Kremlin efforts to get information into Trump was April 2016, not as we thought June 2016. Much more to explore on this. Appears to have been involved in an April 2016 approach to a U.S. congressional delegation in Moscow offering confidential information from the Prosecutor General of Russia about interactions between certain political forces in our two countries. This is how Trump's son flagged the meeting with Kremlin agents about it at his dad's house in the middle of a presidential campaign. I think he knew he was doing wrong. The subject line, FW, Russia, Clinton, private and confidential, adding note that the meeting, everyone doing okay. If a man can tweet a few hundred times to help spread the word about the most important U.S. political news of his lifetime, how damn cynical have we gotten? Friends, I don't fear embarrassment when the stakes here are way, way beyond my feelings. 306. OMFG, if he said so at a staff meeting, why would he lie to his dad? Sorry, I just need to be sure that everyone sees the point. Rick Gates, who was the deputy campaign chairman, stated during interviews with the office that in the days before June 9, 2016, Trump Jr. announced his regular morning meeting of senior campaign staff and Trump family members that he had a lead on negative information about the Clinton Foundation. What? The days before, a lead on negative information about the Clinton Foundation. Gates believed that Trump Jr. said the information was coming from 307. What we're being told, Don Jr. speaks of Clinton dirt to Manafort, Kushner, Ivanka, Hope Hicks, Eric Trump. He lies about Clinton dirt for a year to 6. Donald J. Trump, his dad, the man who's going to leave him billions, and the GOP presidential candidate. All 3 years Trump knew the campaign was getting Clinton dirt. Trump's campaign manager knew. His communications director knew. His son-in-law knew. His lawyer says Trump knew. But the report concludes there's insufficient evidence that Trump himself was told. 309. Mind you, all this despite the fact that on the day Don Jr. told everyone, his father went out and made a public statement saying he'd checks notes, and shortly be given a very interesting speech on Clinton dirt. Yep, this all checks out. Nothing to see here, America. 310. So the idea is that Donald J. Trump went out and gave a public statement saying he shortly be given a huge and interesting speech on Clinton dirt, but no one anywhere ever told him he would be receiving any such information from any source, and he was just riffing. Got it. 311. And Don Jr. refused to be interviewed by the SCO about the meeting, which would have included the opportunity for him to commit a crime about whether he told his dad about the meeting beforehand, as Cohen alleged under oath happened. But facts. The Kremlin agents who spoke to Trump's son at Trump Tower tried to get the translator to perjure himself about what happened at the meeting because nothing untoward at all had happened, offered him money. Yes, this all sounds fine. What this did not establish means Denman told Mueller that Gordon said he was on call with Trump on the RNC platform change, and Trump wanted the change. Gordon said he might have mentioned Trump told him he wanted the change. Equals did not establish Trump wanted change. 314. Any layperson hearing the facts of the RNC platform change the Kremlin wanted, and that Kremlin man, Agent Kilman, bragged around Europe, he negotiated it with Manafort, would say Trump did want to change and express it. Mueller says did not establish the standard. 315. The beyond a reasonable doubt standard is the right standard for a criminal trial. It's not the standard we'd really expect at an impeachment. It's not the standard we use to determine presidential fitness. It's not the standard that protects our national security. 316. Sessions in campaign bailiwick with Russia. This was a several-minute meeting with Russia's ambassador at the RNC, in which he discussed relations with Russia because I asked him a question at a speech. If you think Sessions forgot, sorry, you're a rube, no offense. 6 and 12 ambassadors, including Kislyak, although Sessions stated during interviews with the office that he had no specific recollection of what he discussed with Kislyak, he believed that the two spoke for only a few minutes and that they would have exchanged pleasantries and said some things about U.S.-Russia relation. 317. Remember, Sessions was on the Armed Services Committee, and the press polled every committee member to see if they had contact with the Russian ambassador, any contact at all in 2016. How many did? 0. Sessions would have remembered and had several contacts. Yes, this all sounds right. Gordon and Page chose to sit with Kislyak at a dinner and spoke for check notes 3 to 5 minutes. One of those 3 to 5 minute dinners you often see at Twinkie diplomatic events. 319. Confirmation that J.D. Gordon only acted to change the RNC platform to benefit the Kremlin because it directly contradicted Trump's wishes. Committee meetings. John Mashburn, the campaign's policy director, helped oversee the campaign's involvement in the platform committee meetings. He told the office that he directed campaign staff at the convention, including J.D. Gordon, to take a hands-off approach and only to challenge platform planks if they directly contradicted Trump's wishes. 320. Mueller reports evidence that Gordon called his boss Sessions on the platform change. Sessions was the head of Trump's National Security Advisory Committee. Gordon says Trump set policy on the platform change at the first meeting of his National Security Advisory Committee. 321. Mashburn and Clovis both say they thought Gordon was contradicting Trump, but Gordon and Sessions were on the National Security Advisory Committee, whose first meeting, Gordon said, included a directive on assistance to Ukraine from Trump, and Mashburn and Clovis were not. 322. Wow, Russia's ambassador invited the number 2 man on Trump's National Security Advisory Committee, Gordon, to come to his house on the same day Trump Jr. met with Saudi Emirati emissary offering illegal assistance to the Trump campaign, possibly connected to Russia and Israel. 323. Sessions and the Russian ambassador discussed Russia's aid to Iran in the early September meeting, a key data point, which the conspiracy I explore in Proof of Conspiracy note the Trump-Russia plotline most are already familiar with, something I'm putting a pin in now. 324. Amazing that Kislyak tried to get both Trump's number 1 and number 2 official national security guys back to the House. The good news for him is he got Trump's number one unofficial national security guy, Michael Flynn, to his house. In fact, he did that back in December 2015. The Center for the National Interest, Dimitri Simes, rears his head again, apparently trying to connect Sessions and Russia ambassador Sergei Kislyak during the presidential transition. I'm telling you, Dimitri's making himself into a star witness with his performance. Trump's deputy campaign manager was secretly sending this criminal agent proprietary internal campaign polling data throughout the presidential campaign. At a time the Kremlin needs hard data to target its propaganda campaign. Just read those sentences a few times, I beg you. Reminder, if you want others on Twitter to follow this thread, please retweet my pinned tweet, which is the first tweet in this thread. Many thanks. If you believe this, you believe almost absolutely anything at all. 841. According to the president's written answers, he does not remember Manafort communicating to him any particular positions that Ukraine or Russia would want the United States to support. Written response to Donald J. Trump, November 20, 2018, at 1617 response to question 4, Part D. 2. A definitely normal thing I did on my first day of the Trump campaign, a memorandum by Paul Manafort. Immediately upon joining the campaign, Manafort directed Gates to prepare for his review separate memoranda addressed to Deripaska, Akhmedov, Sergei Lyavochin, and Boris Kolesnyov, the last 3 being Ukrainian oligarchs who were senior opposition bloc officials. The memoranda described Manafort's appointment to the Trump campaign and indicated his willingness to consult on Ukrainian politics in the future. On March 30, 2016, Gates. This is what I mean about Mueller having different people research different issues and apparently never talk to each other. The Manafort section on his contacts with Russia reads like none of the other sections in the report on what the campaign was doing with Russia exist. Mueller reveals Manafort lied about whether he ever had polling data sent to Kilnick, but Manafort knew Gates was telling Mueller that that's exactly what had happened. The scholars suggest that Manafort perceived his actions to be criminal and notably collusive. You can believe the Trump-Russia timeline includes more than 1,000 coincidences regarding Trump and Russia, or you can be an adult. Those are the 2 options. It's a small piece of Manafort's lies to the feds about negotiating a sanctions deal peace plan with a Kremlin spy, or about December 8, 2016. However, Manafort acknowledged Kilnick raised the peace plan again in that email. Manafort openly acknowledged Kilnick also raised the peace plan in January and February 2017 meetings with Manafort. Grand jury redacted. Whoa, Manafort lied about the feds about whether he discussed election targeting with the Kremlin. Apparently he did. There is zero fuzz on the question of why he lied. This goes directly to collusion, broadly writ. Second, Manafort briefed Kilnick on the state of the first Trump campaign and Manafort's plan to win the election. That briefing encompassed the carnage, the campaign's messaging, and its internal polling data. According to Gates, it would also include a discussion of battleground states, which Manafort identified as Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. Manafort did not refer explicitly to battleground states in his telling of the August 2nd discussion. Grand jury redacted. Give me a second here. Get some water. Manafort stayed in contact with everyone after being fired, including Trump and Kushner. Used the term "our" to refer to the campaign, so he remained a campaign advisor up to and well after the election, confirming Trump wanted to stay on good terms with Manafort's friends. I really want to know who flew Manafort out to the Middle East post-election, but I bet I can guess. Appears to follow that plan as he traveled to the Middle East, Cuba, South Korea, Japan, and China, was paid to explain what a Trump presidency would entail. See, Mueller knows exactly how to express himself when he means to say there is no evidence. Anytime he doesn't use language like this below, he's saying there is evidence or an equivalent term, proof of some kind. He often says not uncovered evidence that Manafort brought the Ukraine peace plan to the attention of the Trump campaign or the Trump administration. Killian continues his efforts to promote the peace plan to the executive branch, e.g., U.S. Department of State, into the summer of 2018. 338. Of course, a good prosecutor never says no evidence, but uncovered no evidence or the equivalent, as Mueller does here. 339. Mueller didn't find that Manafort brought the White House the Ukraine peace plan, which is fine because we already know Trump's lawyer did. 340. The report seems to indicate that Vladimir Putin tried to get to Trump through an intermediary on the subject of improving U.S.-Russia relations as early as 3 a.m. in the morning after Election Day. Wow, if true. 341. Somebody subpoenaed Symes for 50 hours of congressional testimony already. I'm sorry, but both my attorney and investment senses are tickling off the damn hook about this guy. He should be on the lips of every journalist in America as a key person of interest right now. Russian ambassador, whose Kushner has previously met in April 2016, unable to call the Russian ambassador's name, Kushner emailed Dmitry Symes of CNI, who he had consulted. Symes to the Trump campaign go to on Russia. Kushner contacts him immediately when he has any Russia issue. How is this guy not a Trump-Russia superstar already? Don't get me wrong, he has a big role of proof of collusion, but it should have been even bigger clearly. Okay, so this is a Kremlin agent who acknowledges doing Putin's bidding, telling Mueller that Putin didn't know anyone in Trump's circle, even though his ambassador had met multiple times with all of them. And Mueller incredulously repeating what the Kremlin agent said. Not good. Avin told the office that he is one of approximately 50 wealthy Russian businessmen who regularly meet with Putin in the Kremlin. These 50 men are often referred to as oligarchs. Avin told the office that he met on a quarterly basis with Putin, including in the fourth quarter, Q4 of 2016, shortly after the U.S. presidential election. Avin says that he took these meetings seriously and understood that any suggestions or critiques that Putin made during these meetings were implicit directives, and that there would be consequences for Avin if he did not follow through. As was typical of the 2016 Q4 meeting, was preceded by a preparatory meeting with Putin's chief of staff, Anton Vivino. According to Avin, at his Q4 2016 one-on-one meeting with Putin raised the prospect that the United States would impose additional sanctions on Russian interests, including sanctions against Avin or Alfa Bank. Putin suggested that Avin needed to take steps to protect himself and Alfa Bank. Avin also testified that Putin spoke on the difficulty faced by the Russian government in getting in touch with the incoming Trump administration. According to Avin, Putin indicated that he did not know with whom formally to speak and generally did not know the people around the president-elect. 344. Yeah, no. We never had any difficulty getting in touch with the Trump campaign. He never ever said to one of his agents that doing so would be difficult. I'm embarrassed for Mueller and his team that they included this content in the report. It is not to be credited. Avin, grand jury redacted, told Putin. Oh, somebody. Avin, grand jury redacted, told Putin he would take steps to protect himself and the Alfa Bank shareholders from potential sanctions. And one of those steps would be to try to reach out to the incoming administration to establish a line of communication. Avin described Putin responding with skepticism about Avin's prospect for success. According to Avin, although Putin did not expressly direct him to reach out to the Trump transition team, Avin understood that Putin expected him to try to respond to the concerns he had raised. Avin's efforts are described in Volume 1, Section 4B5 Infra. George Nader, the star of Proof of Conspiracy, makes his first appearance on checks page 147. Now you understand how little overlap there is between Proof of Conspiracy and the report I'm reading and live tweeting right now. Very little at all, which is shocking. Imagine if the Mueller report had a sequel just as long and shocking, containing many of the same characters but many new ones, and you'd have Proof of Conspiracy. Just want people to know as it looks. This is the only way anyone will get the info is Amazon.com/proof-conspira. B47, I'll say this many times in the coming months. I'm sure the Trump-Russia story is the Trump-Saudi, Trump-Emirati, Trump-Israeli, and Trump-Egyptian stories. It's one story of collusion and, yes, conspiracy, but the Mueller report appears to tackle it only glancingly. Oh. RSEIE. You rise? RIC? Oh my gosh. It's a great idea. The months after the election, Dmitriev asked a close business associate who worked for the United Arab Emirates Royal Court, George Nader, to introduce him to Trump transition officials, and Nader eventually arranged a meeting in the Seychelles between Dmitriev and Eric Prince, a Trump campaign supporter and associate of Steve Bannon. In addition, the UAE National Security Advisor introduced Dmitriev to a hedge fund manager and friend of Jared Kushner, Rick Gerson, in late November 2016. In December 2016 and January 2017, Dmitriev and Gerson worked on a proposal for reconciliation between the United States and Russia, which Dmitriev implied he cleared through Putin. Gerson provided that proposal to Kushner before the inauguration, and to Kushner later get copies of Bannon and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Josh, you understand whose Trump team via Prince was meeting during the transition. Dmitriev is a Russian national who was appointed CEO of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, the Russian Directive Investment Fund, when it was founded in 2011. Dmitriev reported directed to Putin and frequently referred to Putin as his boss. 349. This is bigger than Mueller may realize. That Putin's employee asked Nader to act on his behalf during the election is going to matter a lot. Nader developed contact with both U.S. presidential campaign during the 2016 election and kept Dmitriev abreast of his efforts to do so. According to Nader, Dmitriev said that his and the government of Russia's preference was for candidate Trump to win, and asked Nader to assist him in meeting members of Trump campaign. Grand jury redacted. Nader, it's a whole sentence at least. Nader did not introduce Dmitriev to anyone associated with the Trump campaign before the election. It's important to note that a huge percentage of the grand jury redactions that Barr could have avoided show up the second we're talking about Prince, Nader, Dmitriev, MBZ, and Kushner's associations with all of these. This information America needs to see for key reasons. The other redaction tornado that keeps us from seeing the Nader, Dmitriev, MBZ, and Prince material, investigative techniques. We haven't seen a lot of this. It means counterintelligence information and methods. Now you know or can guess why I wrote Proof Conspiracy. Wouldn't you like to know what this is about? At approximately 2:40 a.m. on November 9, 2016, news reports stated that candidate Clinton had called President-elect Trump to concede at investigative technique, footnote 1014, investigative technique, wrote to Dmitriev, Putin has won. Many of us were waiting to see what Nader told Mueller, and now we're getting a sliver of it, and it's amazing. Later that morning, Dmitriev contacted Nader, who was in New York, to request a meeting with the key people in the incoming administration as soon as possible in light of the great results. He asked Nader to convey to the incoming administration that we want to start rebuilding the relationship to whatever is a comfortable place for them. We understand all of the sensitivities and are not in a rush. Dmitriev and Nader have previously discussed Nader introducing them to the contacts Nader had made within the Trump campaign. Dmitriev also told Nader that he would ask Putin for permission to travel to the United States, where he would be able to speak to media outlets about the positive impact of Trump's election and the need for reconciliation between the United States and Russia. 354. This gives you an indication of how confident, in fact, Putin's top agents were that they could get in face-to-face contact with Trump's team within hours of Election Day. Because they could, because they already had, because they knew that's what Trump and his team wanted. Later that day, Dmitriev flew to New York, where Peskov was separately traveling to attend the chess tournament. Dmitriev invited Nader to the opening of the tournament and noted that if there was a chance to see anyone key from Trump camp, he would love to start building for the future. Dmitriev also asked Nader to invite Kushner to the event so that Dmitriev could meet him. Nader did not pass along Dmitriev's invitation to anyone connected with the incoming administration. Although one World Chess Federation official recalled hearing from an attendee that President-elect Trump had stopped by the tournament, the investigation did not establish that Trump or any campaign or transition team official attended the event, and the president's written answers denied that he had. Man, it's almost like Nader had already met with Trump Jr. and during the campaign to talk about pre-election collusion. Trump Jr. said yes to. Nader stated that Dmitriev continued to press him to set up a meeting with transition officials and was particularly focused on Kushner and Trump Jr. Dmitriev told Nader that Putin would be very grateful to Nader and that a meeting would make history. Grand jury redacted. 356, and there it is. The reason you indict Eric Prince for lying to Congress because he was acting as the Trump emissary in the Seychelles and checked with the campaign before the meeting and then lied about all of that to Congress under oath and did so like an arrogant SOB. Nader traveled to New York in early January 2017 and had lunchtime and dinner meetings with Eric Prince on January 3, 2017. Nader and Prince discussed Dmitriev. Nader informed Prince that the Russians were looking to build a link with the incoming Trump administration. Grand jury redacted. He told Prince that Dmitriev had been pushing Nader to introduce him to someone from the incoming administration. Grand jury redacted. Sentence footnote 1037. Nader suggested, in light of Prince's relationship with transition team officials, that Prince and Dmitriev met to discuss issues of mutual concern. Grand jury redacted. Prince told Nader that he needed to think further about it and to check with transition team officials. 1039. footnote. Indict Eric Prince. Everything he told Congress was a lie. Indict this guy. The next morning, Nader forwarded the message and attachment Dmitriev was sent him to Prince. Nader wrote to Prince that these documents were the versions to be used with some additional details for them, with them referring to members of the incoming administration. Prince opened the attachments at Trump Tower within an hour of receiving them. Prince stated that while he was at Trump Tower that day, he spoke with Kellyanne Conway, Wilbur Ross, Steve Mnuchin, and others while waiting to see Bannon. Cell site location data from Prince's mobile phone indicates that Prince remained at Trump Tower for approximately 3 hours. Prince said that he could not recall whether during those 3 hours he met with Bannon and discussed Dmitriev with him. Grand jury redacted 1049 footnote. Indict Eric Prince. Everything he told Congress under oath was a lie. Prince booked a ticket to the Seychelles on January 7, 2017. The following day, Nader wrote Dmitriev that he had a pleasant surprise for him, and that he had arranged for Dmitriev to meet a special guest for the new team. Referring to Prince, Nader asked Dmitriev if he could come to the Seychelles for a meeting on January 12, 2017, and Dmitriev agreed. 359, great. Either Bannon lied or Prince did. If Bannon told the truth and Prince lied, it may well be he got his orders from other Trump insiders, namely Kushner and Trump Jr., and was trying to keep the more powerful Trump figures out of it by naming Bannon instead. Administration. Nader wrote to Dmitriev, this guy, Prince, is designated by Steve Bannon to meet you. I know him, and he is very, very well connected and trusted by the new team. His sister is now a minister of education. According to Nader, Prince had led him to believe that Bannon was aware of Prince's upcoming meetings with Dmitriev, and Prince acknowledged that it was fair for Nader to think that Prince would pass information on the transition team. Bannon, however, told the opposite. Prince did not tell him in advance about his meeting with Dmitriev. Again, notice how Barr electorally keeping from us much on the info about Prince, Nader, and Dmitriev by refusing to ask a court for permission to publish grand jury info, which he easily could have done, and has been done in similar cases in the past. Barr is a political actor. 360 speechless. Pigeons was directly conveying messages from the transition to a criminal agent on foreign policy Libya while Trump wasn't in office. So much illegality of part of so many people, and Prince lied about every single piece of it. Indict him. If you could read the Mueller report and understand why Prince is under indictment, you're much smarter than me. I know why Prince would say it has implied he's a CIA asset. They won't mess with him. If that's true, which I doubt, it's scarier than anything else. Well, I couldn't recover the message between Bannon and Prince because it appears they've been encrypted and destroyed. If you read between the lines, the transition period, so many crimes, so much destruction of evidence, so much collusion, it will all come out. Trump is facing 20 pending federal and state investigations, including counterintelligence investigations. Many focus on the transition. Don't forget that. We now know that not only did Mueller seize Prince's computers/phones, he interviewed him, and that interview must have revealed that Prince lied to Congress repeatedly, and Mueller did not indict him. This, with Symes, is the greatest mystery of the report thus far, by far. Well, Mueller reveals that Prince and Bannon told him diametrically opposed stories, meaning either Prince was committing a crime in lying to law enforcement, or Trump's campaign CEO was. How is this not front page news across America now? These are known crimes. Proof of conspiracy could cover in detail what Mueller hints at. There's so much more to all of this. Dmitriev's contacts during the transition period were not limited to these facilities by Nader. In approximately late November 2016, the UAE National Security Advisor introduced Dmitriev to Rick Gerson, a friend of Jared Kushner, who runs a hedge fund in New York. Gerson stated he had no formal role in the transition and he had no involvement in the Trump. So Gerson told Dmitriev the Russian UAE Trump meetings had to be secret. Why? Because he knew they were wrong. Mueller even says Gerson knew they were wrong, negotiating foreign policy under no color of authority to do so, which is a Logan Act violation. And now you know who Dmitriev was, Putin's envoy on sanctions. Dmitriev told Gerson that he had been tasked by Putin to develop and execute a reconciliation plan between the United States and Russia. He noted in a text message to Gerson. Dmitry Symes, the unsung star of the Mueller report, Kushner's Kremlin guy. 12.1. LMK, how to proceed. Kushner responds in relevant part. I think I do this one. Confirm with Dmitriev Sims of CNI that this is the right guy. After reaching out to a colleague of Sims at CNI, Vargas reported back to Kushner that Kislyak was the best go-to guy for routine matters in the U.S., while Yuri Yushikov, a Russian foreign policy advisor, with the contact for more direct, substantial matters. These colony capital are calm barracks offices. He admits the transition used them for meetings. They wanted secret from the press. Why keep this one secret? Gorkov, former intel guy, was at Kushner's channel with Putin. So Kushner tried to hide this meeting from America. Kushner agreed to meet with Gorkov. The one-on-one meeting took place the next day, December 13, 2016, at the Colony Capitol building in Manhattan. Kushner had previously scheduled meetings. VEB was and is the subject of Department of Treasury economics of sanctions imposed in response to Russia's annexation of Crimea. Kushner did not, however, call any discussion during his meeting with Gorkov about the sanctions against VEB or sanctions more generally. Kushner stated in an interview that he did not engage in any preparation for. Again, Trump's people and the Russian lie. What is Mueller supposed to do? He can't indict, say, bribery or attempted bribery, and can't exonerate because of lies. The investigation that resolved the apparent conflict in the account of Kushner and Gorkov or determined whether the meeting was diplomatic in nature, as Kushner stated, focused on business, as VEB's public statements indicated, on or whether it involved some combination of a member of Putin's inner circle used the guy who helped write Trump's foreign policy as his cutout to get to Trump. That's how ridiculous this all is. All this poses a national security threat. All this is impeachable. The Kremlin wrote Trump's foreign policy. After the December 2016 all-hands meeting, Avon tried to establish a connection to the Trump team. Avon instructed Richard Burt to make contact with the incoming Trump administration. Burt was on the board of directors for Letter One, another company headed by Avon and has done work for Alpha Bank. Burt has previously served as U.S. ambassador to Germany and assisted Secretary of State for European and Canadian Affairs. And one of his primary roles with Alpha Bank and LI was to facilitate introductions to business contacts in the United States and other Western countries. 374, that's right. It's going to come down at the Mayflower Hotel, as I first wrote more than 2 years ago. Simmons, Burt, Kushner, Manafort, Kislyak, Sessions, and the Center for the National Interest. The names keep coming back again and again, particularly Symes like a bad penny. Burt, who is a member of the board of CNI, discussed at Volume 1, Section 4A4, Supra, decided to approach CNI President Dimitri Symes to help facilitate Vince's request, recalling that Symes had some relations with Kushner. At the time, Symes was lobbying the Trump transition team on Burt's behalf to appoint Burt U.S. ambassador to Russia. Oh, thank you, John Huntsman. Symes saw that he'd gotten off and over his head as Trump Russia conduit, so he bailed too late. Burt contacted Symes by telephone and asked him if he could arrange a meeting with Kushner to discuss setting up a high-level communications channel between Putin and the incoming administration. Symes told the office that he declined to state and stated to Burt that setting up such a channel was not a good idea in light of the media attention surrounding Russian influence in the U.S. presidential election. According to Symes, he understood that Burt was seeking a secret channel, and Symes did not want CNI to be seen as an intermediary between the Russian government and the incoming administration. Based on what Symes had read in the media, he stated that he already had concerns that Trump's business connections could be exploited by Russia, and Symes said that he did not want CNI to have any involvement or apparent involvement in facilitating any connection. In an email dated December 22, 2016, Burt recounted for Avon his conversation with Symes. Through a trusted third party, I have reached out to the very influential person I mentioned in Luxembourg concerning Project A. There is an interest and an understanding for the need to establish such a channel, but the individual emphasized that at this moment, with so much intense interest in the Congress and the media over this question of cyber hacking and who ordered what, Project A was too explosive to discuss. The individual agreed to discuss it again after a new year. I trust the individual's instincts on this. This is exactly what Steele said about Page. The report vindicates the hell out of Steele. Redacted, footnote 1196. According to Konstantin Kalevnik, Paul Manafort's associate, Page also gave some individuals in Russia the impression that he had maintained his connections to President-elect Trump. In December 8, 2016 email, Jennifer Manafort Cohen wrote, Carter Page is in Moscow today sending a message. He is authorized to talk to Russia on behalf of DT on a range of issues of mutual interest, including Ukraine. My plan not to necessarily find it interesting, you need to know I'm going to eat dinner, then finish the last 30 pages of Volume 1, the conspiracy volume. I'll leave it to others to unpack obstruction of justice, which for various reasons interest me less right now. 378. And is anyone reading is catching up? Remember that if you retweet my friend Pete, the first tweet in this thread it allows anyone who wants to get caught up to do so in the hours or so I'm gone. I'll return shortly, and yes, obstruction matters, but I was recovering it. Here's what I'm not hearing anyone say. Mueller was able to make out but not indicate a prima facie on its face case of obstruction because witnesses on that issue preserved evidence and told the truth. Conspiracy witnesses lied and destroyed evidence, period. Moreover, whereas Mueller has a forgiving charge in obstruction, i.e., you don't have to specifically obstruct, merely intend to, so it's easier to prove, he hamstrung himself by investigating conspiracy, but he should have been looking for bribery and aiding and abetting. If Mueller investigates bribery, aiding, and abetting, that conspiracy, and if the witnesses in that case preserve evidence and don't lie to the vets, clear the story they would have been a prima facie case of impeachable bribery and aiding and abetting. So now you ask, why did witnesses in the obstruction case, preserve evidence and tell the truth. The answer, they were either A, law enforcement witnesses, or B, people who knew that even if he were caught obstructing, the Senate would never impeach Trump for it. By comparison, everyone knew that the Senate would have to impeach Trump for any conclusive crime, conspiracy, bribery, money laundering, aiding and abetting, you name it. So those witnesses, who were the very worst characters in all this, lied and destroyed evidence. But here's the rub. They didn't get away with it. They didn't get away with it because the Senate must impeach Trump if there's substantial enough evidence Trump is compromised to create a national security threat. And we do have that evidence in spades from Mueller. So this is where I reveal that I don't give a damn about Volume 2 of the Mueller report. Why? As a red herring. Everyone knows Trump obstructed justice. We knew it a year ago. Everyone knows that the Senate will ignore any and all evidence of obstruction. We all know. So now you tell me why during dinner I turned on CNN and I didn't hear Volume 1 conspiracy discussed one time. Everything was about Volume 2 obstruction. Even though it's Volume 1 that doesn't require proof beyond a reasonable doubt for national security reasons. See, Volume 1 is the ball game. It establishes that Trump's crew told so many lies and destroyed so much evidence and has so many ties to Russia, they refuse to explain that Trump's foreign policy is compromised at the level of proof required for national security impeachment. And still, media won't discuss Volume 1 in detail. And here we come to the hard truth. It was uber nerdy folks like me who spent 2 years learning all the ins and outs of the collusion question that we could bring the hard news to people. The media never did the work. Sure, there was great investigative reporting from the New York Times on Post on individual topics, but anyone who tried to draw the whole picture together got drawn and quartered as conspiracy theorists, even as everything we wrote about, often in books, has now been proven correct. So the case that Trump is a national security threat has been made amply at the level needed for impeachment. But Barr has managed to keep even more evidence from us, and the media doesn't know how to discuss it. And America hasn't been prepared for this topic, not at all. So instead, we'll spend today, tomorrow, and the next day discussing an obstruction case we all knew existed a year ago, and you or I would, I promise you, as I know from trial practice, already be in jail for, even as media coverage of Volume 1 conspiracy is weak sauce. And here I am making an ass of myself with a 400-tweet thread so that someone will notice and wake up and realize that the standard for impeachment on the only thing that was ever going to lead to impeachment has been met. And it's not obstruction, it's a compromised POTUS. Now, if you understand why I wrote Proof of Collusion, we'll publish Proof of Conspiracy in August, now you will see why I barely focused on obstruction in my books and much of my tweeting. This was always a national security case underwritten by bribery and aiding and abetting. There's a reason the counterintelligence cases against Trump are ongoing. There's a reason Barr wouldn't let us see so much of what we need to see because of grand jury or investigative technique correct action. He knows that that's the danger to Trump here, not obstruction. Every time Trump lied, every time his family aides covered for him by lying about what he knew, every time he created a pressure point for Russia to press about every secret meeting he seemed set for and tried to hide, all of this proved Putin was with blackmail, provided Putin with blackmail. What I established in Proof of Conspiracy is that it isn't some of Trump's foreign policy that's compromised by his lies, as he could yell, it's all of it. His Israel policy, his Mideast policy, his Russia policy, even his policy toward NATO and the EU, it's compromised. What America needed was a media that would do the hard work of painting a picture of how Trump became a compromised POTUS by acts of bribery, aiding and abetting, illegal solicitation of foreign donations, money laundering, and more. Instead, we got wall-to-wall obstruction chat. The lawyers I know and respect knew a year ago that Trump obstructed justice and only DOJ regs or the lack of political will in Congress would save him. And guess what? He's a criminal and both things saved him. The focus should always have been on national security. The answer to the question of whether I have any self-awareness of how I come off is, Jesus, one of my bios suggests I lack the intelligence to have that self-awareness. I don't care because when American national security is at stake, you don't worry about embarrassment. 400. America's foreign policy was written literally by our enemies. Obstruction is impeachable offense by law, but not by politics, unless you control both the House and Senate, which the Democrats do not. So we should all have looked to our national security. We didn't. I'd ask anyone at CNN and MSNBC the following: where do we go to war with Iran needlessly, and men and women who we love start dying for precisely what value will be this discourse on obstruction? We wish that you've done the work to understand the collusion question. To those who saw an average citizen like me, a lawyer, writer, ex-investigator, Professor Jones, but not a native national security expert working his butt off for years to try to shed light on national security threat, and who thought, let me make fun of this. The Mueller report is out, and its first 200 pages establish a part of a story that I researched in greater detail as Mueller saw it as outside his purview for proof of conspiracy. And what we're doing is debating nonsense, an obstruction case that will never be brought. We're Reporters could have been in the halls of Congress and asked Republicans, why is it safe for Russian policy to have been written by Kremlin agent Papadopoulos, a Kremlin lobbyist Berg, Putin friend Salma at the time, and a suspected Kremlin guy Page? They never got asked. 405, again, go to courthouse tomorrow and watch an obstruction trial of a citizen like you or me. You hear 1/50th the amount of evidence that exists against Trump, and then the citizen will be convicted and remain in custody. Trump won't be tried because politics. No one's ever explained why it was okay for the Kremlin to write our Russia policy. No one's ever explained how we can have a president who was compromised the moment he started doing secret business deals with the Kremlin mid-campaign and lied to voters about it. No one's ever explained how we have a president whose top aides and family met secretly with foreign nationals, illegally negotiated the U.S. policy with foreign nationals, in many cases took money from foreign nationals, then turned U.S. policy as to those nations on its head. All right, that said and ignored, I'm sure by the folks in media actually in the position to fix their coverage, start doing so tonight. Back to volume 1 of the Mueller report, conspiracy. I have about 30 pages left for a wrap up. Thanks everyone for bearing with me. Hold on. Mueller doesn't explain, unless I missed it, I don't think I did, that the reason Trump man on Russia, Flynn, stuck with Kislyak even after Kushner was told Kislyak wasn't the best conduit to Putin is because Flynn had already established a relationship with Kislyak in 2015. The same week, Trump's national security advisor, Flynn, dined with Putin in Moscow. Incredibly, the phrase we say when talking about the national security case against Trump. Flynn then went to the Russian ambassador house to talk U.S. Russia policy. He was a Trump advisor then. 411. Mueller says McFarlane was with Trump when Flynn asked for guidance, not from McFarlane, his deputy, on dealing with Kislyak. Mueller says he couldn't establish Trump provided guidance, maybe because the witnesses Flynn, McFarlane, etc. have lied to him. He's admitted that. 412. This is the key point on conspiracy. All the witnesses are liars, and they were often rewarded for it. McFarlane, for instance, got rewarded for lying by being ultimately unsuccessful and nominated to be ambassador to Singapore. She has lied repeatedly, no consequences. When Mueller can't establish Trump directed Flynn, understand it's because he has no witness willing to tell the truth. It's not that the evidence isn't there. In fact, all the circumstantial evidence, like who had authority to direct Flynn and was there, tells one story. I don't want to get into the weeds on the Flynn Egypt issue regarding the December 2016 UN resolution. I'll just note Papadopoulos had a September 2016 note off for Israel, Egypt. At the time, he wanted to please Israel and thought he had an inroad Egyptians. I'll note, too, that Papadopoulos was in touch with Flynn during the transition. When the transition was trying to lead on Egypt to withdraw a resolution on Israel that Israel was upset about. Remember, Israel and Egypt are both grand bargain nations, so it all worked out. I want to make a quick note here to say thank you to those sending money via my website. I'm not doing this for payment, but it'd be unkind of me not to say that the gesture is a thoughtful one. Hopefully people are getting value from this thread and seen as a pro bono. Okay, well, I guess we are going to talk about Egypt. I didn't realize that Trump spoke to El-Sisi personally in December 2016. El-Sisi was a member of the Red Sea conspiracy October 2015, helped elect Trump. So him having a one-on-one with Trump on Israel is big. Katie McFarlane is asking everyone who is at Mar-a-Lago for advice on a huge issue for the campaign, what to do about Obama's new sanctions on Russia, magically and probably most likely perjuriously, is that she never asked the man actually in charge. I'm not sure I know that Flynn discussed the Middle East because they're on the same December 2016 call that involved sanctions and led to Flynn being charged with felony. Again, we should all note how frequently the Middle East intersects with Russian sanctions. No accident. True story. When I was in college, I was a radio DJ, and the only music I played was the psychedelic music from 1966 through 71. I spat on everything before and after. I only had one listener I knew of, a pizza delivery guy who'd been at Woodstock. We're up to Mary Jane. I'll play that later. Wait, what? This bizarre conversation at a bizarre moment, and I'm torn between believing Katie McFarlane was once telling the truth and allowing that she likely was instead of per usual lying. Okay, we're almost done here. Okay, just a few more. Were present during the briefing. President-elect Trump asked McFarlane if the Russians did it, meaning the intrusions intended to influence the presidential election. McFarlane said yes, and President-elect Trump expressed doubt that it was Russians. McFarlane also, the basis for the lie would be that it's incredibly convenient to have Trump 4 months after the intelligence community told him Russia was attacking America, expressing sincere doubts on the question, as would harm substantial substantially his criminal mens rea state of mind. I'm leaning toward Katie McFarland lying, first because that's what she does, and second because when is Trump interested in having leverage over the Russians? His plan was to drop all sanctions on them for free. What precisely was he demanding from them ever? Indicator of what the Russians wanted going forward. President-elect Trump opined that the sanctions provided him with leverage to use with Russians. McFarland called that at the Mueller details another instance of conspiracy when destroying, in a way, evidence. Flynn kept office email briefings to transition officials that he discussed sanctions with Kissinger, why he knew that he committed a crime under the Logan Act, why memorialize it. On page 173, Mueller underscores yet again that he was looking at conspiracy only and coordination. Coordination defined synonymously with conspiracy, so not bribery or aiding and abetting or money laundering or legal solicitation or in-kind campaign donation. Recall the four categories of collusion: collusion, conspiracy, impeachable, and a crime; collusion, other crimes, impeachable, and a crime; collusion, national security threat, impeachable; collusion, ethical violation, not impeachable and not a crime; political issue only, the last one. So Mueller looked at one of the four categories of collusion, and at that, only the narrowest form of conspiracy with the Russian government, the IRA, with the GRU, and not conspiracies that could have occurred on the grounds and with other parties, Russian or otherwise. I'm going to love hearing prosecutors defend special counsel's finding that you can basically smoke them if you got them, because receiving and distributing stolen electronic materials. Because hey, what federal statute could possibly apply there? I mean, wow. The office also considered but ruled out charges on the theory that the post-hacking, sharing, and dissemination of emails could constitute trafficking in or receipt of stolen property under the National Stolen Property Act and SPA 18 U.S.C. 2314 and 2015. The statutes covering NSPA cover goods, wares, and merchandise, and lower courts have largely understood the phrase to be limited to tangible items since the Supreme Court's decision in Dowling versus United States 473 U.S. 207 1985. See United States versus Zhang 995 F sup 2D 340 348 344 to 48 ADPA Pennsylvania, 2014, collecting cases. One of those post-Dowling decision, United States v. Brown, 925 F. 2D, 1301, 10th Circuit, 1991, especially held that the NSPA does not reach a computer program in source code form, even though that code was stored in tangible items, i.e. hard disk and in a three-ring notebook. It at 1302-03, Congress in turn cited the Brown opinion in explaining the need for amendments to 18 U.S.C. 1030-82 that would ensure that the theft of intangible information by the unauthorized use of a computer is prohibited in the same way theft of physical items is protected. S.Rep. 104, 357 at 7, 1996, that series of events would make it difficult to argue that hacked emails in electronic form, which are the relevant stolen items here, constitutes goods, wares, or merchandise within the means of the NSPA. Now, I will defend Mueller at this point and say this much. State level receiving stolen property statutes probably would apply to electronic materials in most jurisdictions. So Mueller could actually just be saying that this isn't a federal issue, not that it's legal. But a better use of CNN and MSNBC would have been discussing broadly like this. Why wasn't this receiving stolen property? Why wasn't distributing such materials the equivalent of an anti-fraud? Questions like these have yet to be discussed on major media. To be clear, I'm not referring to foreign nationals here. I'm referring to, say, Donald Trump Jr. potentially accessing a website illegally using the code WikiLeaks sent him, or Schmitz and others receiving material that purported to be stolen at the apparent behest of Trump. That said, so much is redacted from the final section of Volume 1 describing Mueller's prosecution and declining the declination decision that maybe that one of the sections is about Trump Jr. accessing the website, and the other cases are harm to ongoing matters. So who knows? What's concerning is that Mueller thought that he had Don Jr. on a minor offense, but didn't bring it because it was serious enough to, when he also had other offenses, lying to Congress, and could have used Jr. to get at the truth. But it matters, he knows he was lied about my point. I've seen rabid prosecutors, and they charged illegal website entry and lying to Congress, and you throw an obstruction for the false statements Trump Jr. disseminated, and then they say, okay, now tell me the truth about all you lied about, not Mueller. I'll amend what I've said recently. For Mueller, he looked at conspiracy and FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act. There are maybe 20 other collusive crimes that either had he never considered or passed on evidence of to one of the 20 federal and state jurisdictions now investigating Trump and his crew. One other correction, this is oddly structured section, so it threw me a bit. Apparently Mueller did look at illegal solicitation of foreign campaign donation. Some explanation of non-prosecution was a joke, so hopefully a fuller explanation helps me. Yeah, this information Congress is going to want to see unredacted of Russia, of any official thereof. In particular, the office did not find evidence likely to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that campaign officials such as Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, and Carter Page acted as agents of the Russian government or at its direction, control, or request during the relevant time period. Personal privacy redacted. As a result, the office did not charge PP redacted any other Trump campaign official violating FARA or Section 951 or attempting the conspiracy to do so based in context with the Russian government or Russian principle. Almost done. My defense of Mueller. Papadopoulos acted as an agent of the Kremlin in the legal sense for a brief, bounded period of time, but then disclosed his agency to Trump and then again, Trump's agent became FARA registration short of a nullity. But he began as a Kremlin agent. 439, he's a great example of the difference between a criminal probe and a counterintelligence-minded criminal probe. Insufficient evidence to charge Page with FARA, counterintelligence probe, more than enough evidence to get a warrant to see if Page was a national security threat. Now apply that to Trump. Is there enough evidence to justify a warrant to see if Trump's a national security threat? Well, there's as much more evidence of that than there was of Page. So yes, how can you have a president who arguably would be subject to a vice warrant? 441. In the past, I've done long threads of different standards to prove, pointing out that we might not see 90% or more evidence of something being true without a reasonable doubt. But what if we see clear and convincing 70% or preponderance 50.1%? Does that make it okay? No. Mo says he doesn't have 90% plus evidence of something at the level he could get a unanimous verdict. He may well think he has enough evidence to sway some jurors, and 70% or say 50.1% evidence enough for self-judgment overall. But is here a harrowing fact. Mueller not finding an illegal solicitation crime because the info vessel in the sky offer didn't meet the value threshold is well selling. I think Mueller hung his hat on mens rea evidence, which he had too little of if he did, in part because Jr. wouldn't speak to him. Mueller makes clear that in the prosecution and declination decision section that there's material that would harm on an ongoing matter. So the question is if this material relates to the Stone case or some unknown case among the 20 federal jurisdictions still don't work. Frankly, there are so many redactions that they can't all be the Stone or Bijan Kian cases. So there are pending cases we don't know of that Mueller evidence led to a referral for, and that would be big news if media didn't spend all night talking about obstruction. However, there's a whole section on someone lying and possibly committing a crime in doing so that's been redacted. Was it Don, Prince, McFarland, who? Congress will ultimately see this information and will ultimately leak. It may be bigger than obstruction. So one lie was personal privacy, meaning a person who won't be charged, likely Jr. The other was harm to ongoing matter, which I'm guessing is Prince. That means he may still be charged. Indeed, maybe as part of another larger case. I think I know which one. The evidence explaining why Sessions wasn't charged this week. Many attorneys, including many prosecutors, argue the other way on the basis of Sessions lying in successive congressional testimonies he prepared extensively for, not just one time. Mueller demurred. In each case, the issue is sufficiency of the evidence. In no case did Mueller find no evidence of crime, merely not enough evidence. Those are very different ideas when Trump is claiming exoneration, impeachment is required beyond reasonable doubt. On page 189, Mueller gives a big list of items, it seems. It gives a big list of, it seems, Trump wrote personalities, all names info redacted, who at some point lied to Mueller, but then or cooperated, or for some reason escape punishment. You and I should be so lucky if we ever acted like that. Conclusion, I'm not going to cover obstruction here for the reasons I've stated in the thread. I'm just going to note that conclusion occurred. Other conspiracies are still being investigated, and that security threat, Mueller's evidence clearly established, is unabated. And on the one side, I could possibly close with today. Good night, all. American Pie.